Hey everyone, Ganyan here and welcome to my first ever Borderlands retrospective video. Today I'm gonna be pissing off half of the community by giving you my thoughts on one of the most hated DLCs in Borderlands history. Before Borderlands released, that is. I went back and forth on doing this video for a while now because I was very confused when it comes to the conversation around this DLC. In all of my years I have not seen one positive review of this add-on, but at the same time I feel very strongly that it's a special one. That's why today I'm risking it all to tell you my opinion and open your eyes to the truth. So, without further ado, this is my retrospective review of Sir Hammerlock's Big Game Hunt. I thought it best to start with the bad on this one because I have very little to say that others haven't bitched about already. Beginning with the fact that the DLC is simply too short, which is a legitimate issue here. The DLC has only 4 main missions and side missions that are not so fleshed out. But I do want to note here that retrospectively the length problem isn't so bad, since basically it's the same length as the Creek DLC from Borderlands 3 and you see no one complaining about that. But with the benefit of adding actual new enemies to fight, although, when comparing it to DLCs from Borderlands 2, yeah, it is too short. The second complaint I heard being tossed around is that the savage enemies are too hard or too annoying to fight, which is true to a certain extent in my opinion, because the moment that one of the shamans start buffing other enemies, you're basically done for. Unless you have an extremely powerful build, or if somehow you got lucky and got behind him, you can crit shot him in the head. That makes fighting these enemies either nice and chill or just annoyingly hard. Another problem that people mention with this DLC is that the map is too big. On this specific point, I disagree. I think that the big map really adds to the vibe of the adventure, but I can see how it can be annoying for people to spend minutes running in empty space with nothing to do. So, it's a fair criticism. One small problem that I want to mention real quick is the armory at the end of the DLC. After you finish the last boss fight, you can find this big General Knox kinda armory with a shitload of loot chests, but the problem is that you can access it only once, which really sucks, but at the end of the day it's no big deal. The last thing I wanna mention in the bad area is the story of the DLC. Yes, sadly the story is not so good. So let's do a little recap. It starts with Sir Hammerlock inviting you to Agris, this special place to hunt animals, which starts fine. I love the intro of it. I really love the intro of it.
Danger! Excitement! Moustaches! It's time for another episode of Vault Hunter Adventures featuring Sir Hammerlock.
So it starts with that. You meet Sir Hammerlock at the lodge, you fight some savages on the way, you fight some animals, and then you go to a specific place to fight some sort of special scorpion creature, and then you get contacted by this villain of the DLC, Professor Nakayama, and he begs you to fight him, so you accept eventually because he keeps bugging you, and then you go to a special place to fight him, which is the second map of the DLC, the third map actually. The third map of the DLC is where you fight the creature of Professor Nakayama and you actually just talk with him a lot. And after that you go back to the lodge and you go to the last map of the DLC, my favorite map, and that's where you go through the map, make your way to the ship of Professor Nakayama and then fight his last creature there and then just deal with him, which if you've seen videos of the DLC you know how that ends. But in short, the DLC is split into those 4 specific maps, starting with the lodge, then the special creature hunting ground, then the lab for Professor Nakayama, and lastly Kandurax Craig, my favorite map. It's only 4 maps and the story doesn't do really a good job at setting them up and making them feel too special. The visuals is what makes them look different than other maps in the game, which I really love, but the story doesn't really make them seem so special. And Professor Nakayama himself isn't so fun to fight, it's just annoying. It's a little foreshadowing to how Gearbox writing will become in Borderlands 3 and Wonderlands, in my opinion. But still, the DLC story is kinda passable. It's not the best. I love Sir Hammerlock, he's fun to interact with. But other than him, the DLC is just kinda passable. It's not so interesting as other DLCs we've had in Borderlands 3. First, I was gonna compare the DLC to an Indiana Jones movie, but then I remembered an even better comparison. If you were born in the 90s or the early 2000s, then you probably remember the 2005 King Kong movie. Believe it or not, I had a disc version for the PSP of the movie. So I watched the movie like 1,000 times every time we go out with the family in the back of the car on my PSP. That's why when I first saw the Candorax Craig map, the last map of the DLC, I knew that the good people at Gearbox were inspired by that movie when they made this DLC. From beginning to end, the DLC gives vibes of a hidden place in the middle of nowhere with weird creatures and tribal people. Couple that with Sir Hammerlock and his whole fancy adventurer Englishman demeanor, and this DLC will make you feel like you're part of the movie, only the big monkey is missing, sadly. And that leads well into my main love with the DLC. There are so many different and new enemy types to fight here, that it honestly puts Borderlands 3 DLCs to shame. Listen to this, there are 6 new enemy types with different variants included, except for 2 of them. We have giant spores, boroks, scallions, savages, swamp skags, wetland drifters. These enemies may not be the best designed or the most fun to fight out there, but you cannot ignore how much a new enemy type changes the gameplay compared to the base game. And at the end of the day, isn't that the point of a DLC? To give you a new experience? Other than the new enemy types, we also have 2 brand new raid bosses with this DLC. If you're keeping count, that's 2 more than Borderlands 3 DLCs gave us. Add on top of that the 4 open areas to explore, including one of my favorite maps ever in a Borderlands game, the aforementioned Candorax Craig. And these are not the little finish it in 5 minutes kind of maps, no. These are the big, expansive areas with new fanboat vehicle to drive in, varied locations and, like I said, fun enemies to fight throughout. When it comes to the point of every Borderlands game, the new loot, there are 6 unique loot pieces in this DLC, split between 13 bosses, 3 story bosses and 10 special enemy bosses. Most of the new loot is pretty fun to play with, and some of it is really strong actually, so it's interesting to find and the loot is good. In conclusion, Sir Hammerlock's Big Game Hunt is in my opinion one of the most criminally underrated DLCs in Borderlands history. It has fun areas, fun enemies, good loot, good vibe. The story is kinda weak, but it's still passable. It's basically better than most of the DLCs we get nowadays, that's for sure. It's better than the Krieg DLC, but it's not better than the Tiny Tina DLC or other DLCs in Borderlands 2 like the Scarlet DLC. Still, it's a fun time, and I honestly don't understand why people hate it so much in the community. Maybe I just look in specific dark areas of the community, but it seems to me like everyone hates this DLC. That's why I wanted to make my first retrospective video of this DLC specifically. As a fan of the King Kong movie, I fucking love this DLC. It gives you the vibe of the movie and it's really fun to go through. And I wanna replay it, just talking about it makes me wanna replay the DLC. And I hope you check it out in case you didn't so. If you were here for the review of the DLC and the retrospective, that was all. If you wanna stay, from here until the end of the video is gonna be a channel update, so you're welcome to stay if you wanna. If not, thanks for watching and be sure to like the video. So, as an update for the channel, I know I haven't been uploading a lot lately because Borderlands has really just taken my vibe out of Borderlands. I don't even feel like playing Borderlands anymore. But revisiting this DLC, going back to Borderlands 2, it reminded me why I love the series in the first place. It reminded me why I started this channel. So I really wanna make more retrospective videos, and if you like this one, be sure to give me feedback down in the comments. Did I talk too much, too little, you wanna know more or less? Editing, just anything you wanna tell me. I'm interested to hear the feedback, and if you wanna know more DLCs, be sure to tell me which one you wanna hear about. I love Borderlands 2 and it just feels so refreshing to go back to that game and actually enjoy playing Borderlands again. But for now, as always, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, and if you want other videos, be sure to check them out. They're on the screen right now. And as always, have a nice day.